Hey guys, it's Anicia, and welcome to day 3 of BOOKMAS. Now, as you can tell by the title of today's video, I'm going to be giving you my BOOK month reading wrap-up. I've been in a major slump, and I only read 7 books in the months of September, October, and November. And that is a little for me, especially since I didn't even read in the month of October. But it's okay, because I'm gonna give you guys my opinions and thoughts on the books that I read this month and whether or not I think that you should read them. Starting with September, the first and only book I read, I believe, was The Deal by Elle Kennedy, and I read that book on my Kindle. Now, I gave the book 4 stars. Basically, if you haven't read The Deal already, it's a hockey romance, and I believe that she tutors him, and it gets from like tutors with benefits, I guess. And honestly, it was a really fast-paced book, and I loved the characters. It was really easy to get through, and I think I finished this book in a day, which is really surprising because I hadn't been able to pick up a book for weeks, and that was one of the first books that I read that I was able to really like get through really fast and super quick. And I love Elle Kennedy's writing because honestly, I didn't want to put the book down ever. And I'm pretty sure I was about to give this book 5 stars, and the only reason I didn't was just because honestly it just didn't give me that 5-star feeling. But it was a really good book regardless. Honestly, I'd absolutely recommend it if you're in the mood for something fast-paced, easy to read, and no thoughts behind it. Honestly, the relationship between both characters was super sweet, and I really enjoyed seeing their dynamic together. The only thing is that I don't know if it's a spoiler, but I think one of his friends, because he's on the hockey team, and I believe he's the captain, but one of his teammates had a crush on her, and we didn't really see that, but we kind of saw it through his eyes, like, because it was like, oh, my friend was looking at her in a certain type of way, and it was like this whole thing, and it kind of threw me off for a bit because I wasn't really looking for that. But apparently his book is next, so I don't know, we'll see. I really want to continue the series, and I'm excited to get back into it. Okay, now for the month of October, I didn't read anything at all. Let's just say school got to me. School got to me, definitely. But in November, I read 6 books, and the first book that I read and finished was Restore Me by Tahira Mafi. Now, this is book 4 in the Shatter Me series, and if you don't know already, I love the Shatter Me series. Her books are so easy to binge, and honestly, this book had me, I don't even know. I have no words for it, genuinely, because the way that we see these characters develop, and I don't know how much I can say simply because it's a series, but I know that the series has been out for a while. So if you haven't read it already, like, girl, you're missing out, genuinely. But it's Juliet Ferraris and Aaron Warner. Now, they're on opposite sides of the war in their universe, and basically Juliet is fighting to overtake his side and basically fix everything that Aaron Warner's side ruined about their world. I don't want to give too much away, but the first book has a love triangle. The love triangle progresses, and then we see the 2 characters interacting here, and honestly, everyone already knows this, but like, Aaron Warner and Juliet are so in the way we see them interact in this one, because Aaron is dealing with grief and trying to, you know, figure out his life after his father and finding out about his family, and then Juliet's kind of trying to help him, but she doesn't really know how, and they're trying to navigate their relationship, and then they go through like a little rough patch, and then before everything could like work itself out, Juliet finds a new part of her power, and you know, it gets crazy, and then the twist at the end, I was not expecting that. I mean, I kind of knew because I was getting it spoiled a little bit, but Tahira Mafi, you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing, girl, and keep doing what you're doing. I absolutely love it. I gave this book 5 stars. Now, honestly, it was perfect when I read it because this was one of the first books that I picked up again after like 2 months of not reading, pretty much. And it was, as I said, really fast paced, and the plot was beautiful. Like, I love the plot. I feel like her world building is so and I don't know how to describe it other than the fact that I love it. But yes, I did give this book 5 stars, and it's one of my very few 5 stars that I gave this year. Now, moving on, the next book that I read was Spiral by Bal Kabara. Now, this is the second book in the Off the Ice series, I believe. Now, I read Collide by her, which was the first book in the series, and it's an interconnected series. We follow our main characters, Elias and Sage. Now, Sage is a struggling dancer, and Elias is on the NHS, the National Hockey League or whatever. NHL? I don't know what I should read. Anyways, but he just got put on this famous hockey team, and he's getting a lot of bad publicity. So him and her decide to fake date, and we watch their relationship develop and grow throughout the whole thing. But then we find out something about Elias that kind of like halts the relationship. But because of that situation, I feel like, wait, does it say it in the back? Because I want to say it, but I don't know if I can. I don't know. But because of it, I feel like we were able to see this relationship be more emotional than physical, and I loved it because I feel like they really got to connect and get to know each other and just like learn so much about each other. Don't want to say too much because I feel like if you read this, you should go in blind, because honestly, this is such a sweet book. I know it's kind of crazy, but it's really, really cute. I love the characters together, and I love the way this author writes. I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars. Now, I rated it 5 stars on Goodreads, but it was a 4.5, 4.7. It was so good. Like, it was so good. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars was because I loved Collide. It's a friend's book, and they both got recruited to the same team. But I loved that book a lot more, and I love both books. Like, don't get me wrong, it's up there, but Collide was just like there for me. You know what I mean? Now, the third book that I finished in the month of November was actually also on my Kindle, and that was Things We Had from the Light by Lucy Score. Now, this book I ended up rating 4 stars. Now, I loved Things We Never Got Over, and that was a 5 star that I think I gave last year. Maybe it was this year. I don't know. It was a while ago. But this was basically following Nash, the older brother, and Lena. Nash ends up in an accident, and he's the head of police or whatever in their small town, and because of this accident, it's affected him as like a person, and he's changed a lot. And Lena is basically from out of town, but she dated Knox, which is Nash's brother. Basically, they have a really sweet friendship. It's nothing like toxic or anything, but Nash and Lena are neighbors now because she's moving into the small town for a work thing. And basically, I don't know what I could say, genuinely. Lena's following something about his accident, and he's done with his accident. He doesn't want to even look into it. He's over it. And let's just say he gets back into the whole thing. It's a whole thing. He's forgotten a lot about his accident. He doesn't remember. He has like memory loss from it. But then he, like things start piecing together, and let's just say it was a good book. It really was. Now, I wasn't absolutely in love with this. I loved the writing style. It was easy and fast paced. I feel like I say that about a lot of books, but genuinely the authors that I have been reading lately are pretty easy and fast paced. It was a thicker book, and I will say there were times when I was like, okay, I'm kind of over it. It felt really dragged out at times, but when we got to the last like 20% of the book, I will say the plot got faster, and it was like a whole thing. But I absolutely loved the dynamic, and definitely 100% would recommend. Okay, so the next book that I ended up finishing was Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. Now, I love Ali Hazelwood in her writing. She always writes the best STEM romances. Now, I've only read 2 other books by her, and I love those books so much. I gave them both 5 stars. Now, this one was a 4.5. It was really close. It wasn't my favorite. I don't know. It just wasn't. Maybe it was the timing that I read it, because I was still kind of like in my book slump. But I don't know. It just wasn't the best book for me. But it was still a good book. we follow B and Levi, and B and Levi used to know each other back in college, but B always thought that Levi didn't like her because he iced her out, he wouldn't stand next to her, he wouldn't work with her. It was like this whole thing. But it turns out that Levi always liked her, but because she was engaged or about to get married, I don't know, it was like a whole thing. But because of that, he was like, oh no, I can't be next to her because I like her like that freaking much. And I thought that was so cute, but it came off as rude and arrogant. And B was like, bruh, he always thought I was ugly, he always thought this. And it was kind of awkward seeing that interaction between them, because you kind of could tell on the little signals that he was putting down that it wasn't like that. But he was just very bad at expressing himself, and he was talking about like therapy, and it talked about all of this stuff, which I loved seeing. I don't know, it just wasn't my favorite though. I did love their character dynamic, and of course the plot twist is always the same in these books. There wasn't really like a third act breakup, it was more like this character gets betrayed, and basically that's what happens. And I loved her writing style. I love how she ties in her woman in STEM, and I'm pretty sure she's in STEM herself, so she knows a lot about it, and it's very info heavy, but it's really nice because she writes it in a way that's easier to understand. So definitely would recommend one of her books. Now, the last book that I read in the month of November was Twisted Emotions by Cora Riley. Now, this book was a 5-star. I fear it was a 5-star. I didn't expect it to be, but it was. I read that on my Kindle, and I believe it's like the second book in her... What series is this? I don't even know. Like, I genuinely don't even know, but I picked it up because I saw like a dark romance, and I was like, okay, I'm in the mood for it. And when I picked it up, I wasn't expecting that much. I know it's the second book in a series, and I probably shouldn't have done that. And there's like a whole series that you should read before it. But I was like, honestly, I don't really care. Like, I hear such good things about it. I want to get into dark romance anyways. And I was not expecting that. We basically follow Nino and Kiara. And Nino is in the Kimura, and Kiara is tied to... She's the cousin of... I don't even know the lingo. Like, I genuinely don't know the lingo. I just jumped in. But she's on a different side, and they have like a marriage of convenience. So Nino and Kiara get married together because the Kimura made a deal with... I really need to know what it is. What is it? They have like a whole deal. But Kiara is going through something really traumatic because her dad betrayed like their side or whatever. And she ended up moving in with her aunt and uncle, and when she's over there, something really traumatic happens, and she has to deal with the consequences, and she keeps it to herself, doesn't tell anybody. And it's important that this doesn't happen to her, simply because the whole thing, there's like a bed sheet thing, which is really disgusting. But basically when they get married, they have to show the sheets, and because of this traumatic thing, she can't show the sheets because it won't be there, and it's like a whole thing. So Nino marries into her, and Nino finds out, and he gets revenge for her. And then we see him trying to help Kiara kind of overcome her trauma and become like a better person. And it's really sweet because Nino really doesn't feel emotions, but he's kind of feeling different with Kiara. But it's like the littlest details that he's feeling that he doesn't really understand, and it's really sweet. I loved seeing their dynamic together and seeing Kiara kind of come out of her shell and be surrounded by the Kimura boys. It was really sweet to see them be kind of like found family. Of course, it was really crazy because again, they're in like the mafia, and it's really dark at times, but in the way they talk about like girls is really weird and like whatever. But aside from that, it being a dark romance, I fear it was a 5 stars. Aside from it all, I absolutely loved it, and 100% would recommend reading. I don't know that much about the series, but I do know that that book was the best. It was the best. I don't care. There's nothing that could top that book. And honestly, I was still thinking about it. I still think about it to this day, and I read it last month. I don't know, like it was the type of book that I closed and I was like, dang, it's over. Yes, it felt long at times, but it was so worth it to go through those slow moments with them. I don't know. And I hear that the next book follows Nino's older brother, and they have like a whole thing. And then I think there's like another book with Nino and Kiara. Put me in. Put me. Hand it over. Like, just hand it over right now, the second. I don't know. But I just know that I absolutely love the book, and I can't wait to continue reading that series. Now, that is all for my 3-month reading wrap up. Now, I know it was very short and little, but I will say I'm proud that I was able to finish that many books simply because I was in such a heavy book slump, and I'm in the midst of my senior season, so I've been dealing with applications and classes and all this stuff. So aside from that, I had a really good 3-month reading period, and I had some good books, and I didn't have any like negative ones, but I do think that all these books are 100% worth the read, and all these authors love their writing styles. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. But yeah, that's all for me today. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.